This video is going to be a film study look at one of the foundational plays that Todd Monken and the Ravens use out of bunch sets to manipulate, set up the defense for complementary plays that flow thereafter. I'm going to talk about the dual read concept briefly and then delve into bunch attack that Todd Monken and Lamar Jackson utilized, not just in their game this past week against the Giants. That's where we'll start, and then try to let some of the film flow through and show you the wide array of concepts that Monken uses to attack both sides of the field, to the bunch or away from the bunch, and then vertically as well, down the field concepts, particularly over routes by the tight end or whoever emanates from the side of the bunch. We'll use the first play here against the Giants as a jump-off point. It's our third possession, dual read concept between Lamar and Likely. Talked about this many times in video format, punctuated with a little bit of a push by Lamar at the end of the play. So Lamar and Likely are both reading Kayvon Thibodeaux. Pre-snap, you've got the corner and the safety still over there to the boundary. I mean, the Giants are really unprepared for this. It shouldn't be surprising to anyone. They didn't have many of their starters out on the field, so guys weren't capable of making checks with confidence because maybe they hadn't done the film prep, number one. Number two, maybe they haven't been used to the responsibility of doing so in the first place. As there's a mesh, Lamar could give this ball to Derrick Henry. Theoretically, depending on the play concept, I do think there's times where it's just a read with Lamar, going to keep it around the edge and or give it to Derrick Henry. I do think there's times where it's a play action with maybe a vertical attached to it on the backside. That's not what we get here. This is the same play from the end zone angle. So you can see the bunch to our left. The offense is right. The running back opposite. So B-Gun and Kayvon Thibodeaux really isolated over here off the edge. He's off the frame for you guys. He'll come into the screen here in a moment. So really isolated off the backside here into the boundary with the inside linebacker. Likely, Lamar both reading it. Likely is going to loop around, go get the front side inside linebacker, number 41, so that Lamar can utilize his athleticism. And Lamar kind of gears down sometimes to let that block set up, basically to let Likely get out in front. So when I say that it's a foundational play, what I'm talking about is attacking to the boundary away from the bunch. We're really zoomed out here, but the field side is down here where the bunch is. The boundary short side of the field is to the top. Were we to be reversed with the running back? Well, let's get to an example that'll show you. Now, this is actually unbalanced last year against the Detroit Lions down into the red zone. So we're unbalanced or tackle over with Ronnie Stanley. So there's a little bit of an added element there. But Monken utilizes bunch, which is what this is, even though the third guy there is a tackle, Ronnie Stanley, and the foundational play there is pin pull pitch. So pitching it out to the running back, in this case Gus last year, punching it into the end zone. We've used the same concept with Justice Hill. We've used the same concept with Derrick Henry. This year in 2024, the idea is get multiple guys out in front, hats on hats, and make it difficult for the defense to match the numbers that you can get to the point of attack. But the difference is that it's a gun. So the back is to the side of the bunch. Generally, in this video, we're going to focus on the opposite, which is the back away from the bunch side. So that's actually what we have here, and this is one of the plays that I really enjoyed trying to look at and figure out during the course of the season. It's 12 personnel bunch, but it's closed A. So closed normally means the tight end is attached to the tackle in a traditional three-point stance. That's not what we have here. Andrews is obviously standing up. We motion through, so we've broken the bunch. Once Zay motions through here, and then we still get the dual read element with Lamar and the running back crossing his face. In this case, the running back again is Henry, so he's going to cross his face, and in the direction that Henry is flowing to, you've got Likely running across, potentially to be a dual read guy on that edge defender, 57, who slams down. So he's going with the give to Henry. He takes out Likely, which is cool. It's a cool way to handle it from a Browns perspective. It turns it into another highlight for Lamar, first of all. But second of all, it turns it into essentially Lamar just running for space because Likely isn't out in front of him. So the Browns, were hip to our game, if you ask me. They didn't allow us to loop around to the outside. They basically traded, think pawn for a pawn in chess. They basically traded that edge defender for Likely, which in my opinion kind of limits us to a shorter gain on the play. It is a give read. It is a give read for Lamar. That defender kind of veered upfield and then started to chase. Lamar takes his time reading it. I think he reads it a little longer than other quarterbacks at times, and that's a good thing. That's a positive asset, if you ask me, because it prevents teams from being able to do what T.J. Watt and others try to do at times, which is go upfield and then L or J it back to the inside, essentially force a give read and then fold back down. Because Lamar holds the ball a little bit longer on these option concepts, in my opinion, it mitigates the opportunity for defenses to do some of the things that I just described, which is basically give Lamar a particular read and then have the outside linebacker just adjust flat because he knows that it's going to be a give to the running back. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. Moving on, a little bit earlier in the season, this is against Washington. So we've got Bunch to the top side. Again, we're out of 12 personnel, closed, and with the tight end and Justice Hill on the same side. So very similar dynamic to what we just had, except this one is now essentially QB pin pull pitch. Look at this situation we've got down here to the boundary. You got Falele out on the edge. He's essentially the kick-out block. The running back is a lead blocker in the case of Justice Hill, and Lamar is following the running back. So you've got this QB follow nature to it, or QB ISO. You get one block from Falele down here on the corner. Second one, Justice Hill on the safety, and Lamar is through for a big gain on QB sweep, QB pin pull pitch, whatever you want to call it from a blocking standpoint, conceptual standpoint. It almost looks like down out of the wing T. It's a really cool play, if you ask me. One of my favorite plays to watch and appreciate. Certainly not one of my favorite plays to try to stop. In any case, how does all that lead into other plays? Well, you got the play action element. Lamar putting the ball in the running back's gut, hopefully drawing the defense up, and then able to throw over the top. In this case, he kind of had to pump fake and then gets it to Zay Flowers. Look at the location of the ball here. I mean, maybe the ball could be another 6 inches over here, further to our left, but just a badass throw, especially for him to be kind of double pumping here a little bit to get away from Trey Hendrickson, who was battling with Ronnie Stanley on the play. So obviously the run action sets up the pass. That's classic. That's classic football for at multiple levels and dating back decades. It's not just a Ravens dynamic. It doesn't mean that we don't have pass concepts that are independent of play action on the particular snap. You can see there's no mesh between Lamar and Justice Hill here. This is obviously week 1 against the Chiefs. No mesh means they didn't come in contact with each other, and Lamar didn't put the football in Justice Hill's gut. From the bunch side, Isaiah Likely has looped to the outside. This is one-man screen. I call this one-man screen. People got different names for it. The reason why I call it one-man screen is because you've got routes that are developing from the bunch. So it'll be Andrews and Zay running routes, while Likely goes out to the edge to lead block for Justice Hill. It doesn't mean that Justice Hill, the running back, is going to get the ball every single time. You may have something pop open here. It means that this is the read side, and conceptually, it ends up being 4 to a side. Although there's not 4 routes being run, there's really only 2 with a screen, a one-man screen, attached to it in the form of Justice Hill and Isaiah Likely. It's essentially an extension of the run game to the outside. We don't have to refer to it as an extension of the run game as Ravens fans and people who try to analyze the Ravens offense, because we have a legitimate top 5 rushing attack in the NFL because of Derrick Henry and Lamar and some of the concepts that we use. Other teams, however, who aren't so blessed and who aren't as committed to the run game don't have that benefit. So for them, it is a complete extension of the run game, getting the ball to the running back out in the flats. It still is for us, but we don't have to use it as often as other teams do. From the end zone angle, you can see a little bit here of the communication pre-snap. The Chiefs seem to have some type of idea about where this play is going to go from the communication that Tranquil and I believe a safety off screen had, but it doesn't mean that they can necessarily stop it. We're still able to get 6 or 7 yards out of the play because Justice Hill makes one guy miss and then fights through contact to get a couple more yards at the end. A couple of other pass plays independent of play action. We've motioned to the bunch now with Likely, and by the way, that came also out of 21 personnel. So Ricard is the backside tight end. So when you refer to it as bunch. Sometimes you refer to it as bunch pre-snap, and sometimes you refer to it as the bunch what it is or what it's becoming right as the ball is snapped. So we're talking about pretty much right now, the bunch here, the closed nature of it, and what Monken is trying to get accomplished, in my opinion, is change the numbers to the passing strength. Pre-snap run strength is here, Ricard and a tight end. Pass strength is here, especially with the running back on that side. So you've got the opportunity for 3 routes over here, 2 to the downside, one of which clearly would not be very threatening in the case of Pat Ricard. It's a really nice job by the Ravens of getting Zay Flowers in what looks like it's going to be a China out, and then he brings this route back underneath, not necessarily at that angle there. We also, I think, are looking down the field at likely on that wheel. So that ball would have to be thrown, obviously, towards the sideline, up the field. Lamar chose not to take it in this case. Why? Because he found Zay Flowers wide open underneath. They're lucky that he didn't take this to the house and score. It ends up being a 19-yard gain. So we're talking about this route here by likely, pretty much the same thing that he hit against the Rams last year at home late in the season for a touchdown up the left sideline. You can see where Lamar's looking immediately. We're also kind of slide pro in this with everybody working in this direction and Henry helping out on the edge to our left-hand side to handle any blitzer and or edge defender. I've often likened or compared Lamar to a Major League Baseball shortstop, a high-level one, in fact. I understand that he actually is left-handed, but in many of his throws, particularly ones that are of a sidearm nature like this, he just looks like a guy who has great skills with a glove and a baseball in his hand in terms of getting the ball to the first baseman and or the second baseman in time, no matter which direction he is sliding in. I understand he actually didn't play baseball prior to going to college. So here's a bunch formation out of 21 personnel again, except now we are under center. And this is where we're going to get into the straight play action reliant concepts, essentially over routes, that Mark Andrews and Lamar have used for a half of a decade. Play action drop back by Lamar, getting the ball to Mark Andrews on a predetermined route with what functions as a clear out route to the downside, to the target side of the field. So we're talking about down here, Tylan Wallace. We've used this for a long time, dating back to Greg Roman's time as the offensive coordinator in Baltimore, to great effect. Same play from the end zone angle against the Eagles 2 weeks ago. A little bit of a reverse pivot by Lamar. Andrews, you can see, releasing to the inside of the inside linebacker. And the cool thing about it is Henry, I think, is way better in pass pro than any back that we've had in years. No disrespect to anybody currently on the roster, Justice Hill or other running backs that we've had, but Henry is really classy and balanced when he's responsible for a gap or an area in pass pro. I find him to be incredibly responsible, meaning he doesn't ever overcommit to something and or leave too soon. He seems to be a guy that's in the right place at the right time, for the most part, on play action where he has to pass protect against a linebacker or anybody else who shows up. Multiple variations or iterations of that over concept, and it can come from either side, but either side meaning right or left, but it generally is emanating from the bunch side. Another example of it, earlier in the season, against the Bengals, you got 12 personnel with both tight ends, Likely and Andrews, on the same side of the field. No play action, but you do get Likely underneath, Andrews on the over concept, and then attached to that is this drag to Bateman that we did hit against the Giants, and I just really like that as an option. We're for that particular bunch set. So what I mean is, if we're going to run the over from this side and a drag underneath of it in what would be a no-cover zone against a zone, this is not zone, by the way. I love the conflict, the horizontal conflict that is being put on here, and the vertical conflict at the same time. So this area of the field here, once these routes sort themselves out, has no one responsible for it at all. Not saying that's where the ball should be thrown. This is a huge gain to Andrews against man, kind of when he really started to look extremely efficient. Early in the season, I didn't think that he necessarily, well, the production wasn't the same, I guess, from an efficiency standpoint and opportunities. Since then, he's been ridiculous. I believe we're at 84.7 or 84.6 catch percentage so far in 2024. Another bunch set. This one's wider, but conceptually, we're still talking about the same thing. It's going to be an over concept, almost like an overshoot by Zay Flowers against man. Clean win in the middle of the field that Lamar is able to identify quickly and get him the ball. So we have the scheme to create conflict in either side, either by a drag from the backside and the over route. Redraw that one, my apologies. Oftentimes it's kind of bent like that, independent of whatever the heck else goes on. But in this case, Andrews is chipping for a moment to help out off the left side against presumably Hendrickson. And then he still has the gravity such that Bengals defenders have got to occupy him or think that he may run a route. Essentially, this formation, in my opinion, is one that creates natural conflict to either side of the formation with a run-pass standpoint. Now, a lot of it is dependent on the back. This is bunch right A. Once Zay motions down, this is a third down against the Chargers. And we're going to get a touchdown over the middle to Mark Andrews. I think that bunch might be one of the formations where Todd Monken has the most diversity of attack. And what I mean by that is run pass to either side, right or left, strong or weak. Also pass concepts to either side, right or left, strong or weak. Would I say that in the past the Ravens offense didn't throw to the X receiver enough? Yes. I think that situation's been rectified. You're welcome to let me know what you think in the comment section. I think we throw to the backside often enough in 2024 to keep teams honest. I understand that some would say, well, Coach, we don't have a 6'3", 225-pound big X who can just dominate people, or, you're really smooth, classic, balanced receiver like a Devontae Adams or a Justin Jefferson. I mean, I can't argue with that. But what I can say is the guys that we've been running out there at the X receiver in 2024, Rashad Bateman and Tylan Wallace, generally, those guys have been effective in those one-on-one situations, oftentimes shorter routes, but Rashad Bateman down the field, look, he's averaging 17.2 yards per catch. Whether it's against man, zone, match principles, we're getting production out of that backside stuff. I think maybe I should have led with this. Bunch may be the formation that Todd Monken has I don't want to say the biggest playbook, but the largest number of effective plays to either side of the formation. And that seems to be unique in my observation across the NFL. So many other teams, and especially for this reason. He's not as reliant on pick rub concepts as other offenses are. I don't use that to downplay the teams that utilize those things. It's very prevalent. The Buffalo Bills just use 6 or 8 pick rub concepts against the Detroit Lions and their man coverages this past week to really abuse some of their interior guys coverage-wise. I would say that it's damn near impossible to get out there and cover some of those guys when you're playing man and you're blocked off or picked by 2 players, one high and one low at the same time. For Monken's offense, his bunch offense, I should say, to be as effective and not overly reliant on pick rub concepts is really unique and interesting. It makes me really wish that I had been able to maintain or keep up my offensive database this season. I have not. It's just been very difficult to get to that at all in a given week. I think I only have 3 weeks of data that's actually compiled, so no way that I could present anything and say, hey, out of bunch, we're averaging this amount of yards per pass and this amount of yards per run. We can look up data for personnel groups. I am not aware of anywhere that keeps data for formations, and it's one of my personal disappointments for this season that with such a historic and productive offense, I haven't been able to keep up with that type of data from a formation standpoint and be able to give that to you in videos like this one and other ones. In any case, appreciate you guys' time. If you checked out the entire video, I'm really thankful and grateful for that, number one. Number two, if you enjoyed this content and my exploration of Todd Monken and the Ravens' usage of bunch formation to attack defenses to the right and left, strong and weak side horizontally, and vertically down the field through over concepts and deep digs. I actually omitted one that I could have shown to Zay Flowers from 2023 that really illustrates it. But if you enjoyed the content, then please consider liking the video, commenting down below to help push this out to a larger audience. And then finally, if you would like to see my work exposed to a larger audience directly, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.